Introduction. Okay, you do first. Okay, good.
Thank you everyone for coming and welcome to the new DataCon LA. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Nader Fathi from Kiana. Nader is a serial entrepreneur and a veteran of the big data and IoT industry. He's CEO of Kiana Analytics, a big data company that helps brick and mortar businesses to strengthen on-site security and understand visitor behavior. Nader holds a BSEE and an MSEE from USC and completed his coursework towards a PhD. He will be presenting a talk titled Disrupting Physical Security Through Digitization and IoT. Please join me in welcoming Nader.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And again, thank you for coming to this session first thing in the morning. I appreciate it. So something totally different we're going to talk about. So as she mentioned, I am from LA. I lived here until '89. And I decided I don't want to get into real estate business, and I was not funny enough to join Hollywood. So I went up to Silicon Valley, and I've been living there since '89. As she mentioned, my second company, the first company was also in big data, which was bought by Siemens, and we started this company called Kiana. So let's move right in there. So one quick thing about my company. Let's see if this thing moves. Here we go. Great. So a little bit about Kiana. Kiana.io is our website. You can look at it. We are in a business of what we call IOP. How many people know what IoT is? Most of you. Well, we are IOP. We are Internet of Persons. What we do is that we look at people and basically look at it for two reasons. Number one, desirables. Who are the people I want in a location? For example, students are desirables. I want them here. But who are undesirables? Who are the people I do not want in a location, right? So maybe there are people who are being kicked out of the school. Maybe there are people who are here to do robbery or whatnot. And who are the people we can recognize we don't want in a place, right? By the way, we learned this term working with a casino in a city outside of China called Macau. Macau, as you know, is a big casino. And in Macau, we had a meeting with one of the casinos there, and they were saying, hey, we're looking for desirable and undesirable. So who do you think are the desirables in a casino? Who do you think the casino owners are looking for? People like me who barely plays any gambling? No. They're looking for what they call whales. These are high spenders. Actually, at that casino we're working with, there were people who were gambling $5 to $10 million a weekend. So the casinos would love to have those people come in there. So those are desirable. Undesirable people like me, these guys are there to get free drinks and do nothing. So how do we keep the desirables in and out? So company, we are a big data cloud company. By the way, I was glad to see the Google Cloud here. Our technology runs on Google BigQuery. My team, half of it is in Silicon Valley, half of it is in Germany. By the way, we used to say Germans are great with football, beer, and data. We don't say football anymore because, as you know, they didn't do well in World Cup, but they're still doing great with beer and data. So that's it about my company, and you can learn more about it. So let's move on to the next slide. So what I want to talk about, again, talk about the problem. Physical security, unfortunately, is a worldwide problem. It's not a US or Europe or Asia problem. It's a worldwide problem. We live in a very uncertain environment in the entire world, so I'm going to talk about that. A little bit about what we call IoT and why IoT is so hot and how does that translate into big data, which is the purpose of this conference here. We'll look at some solutions. We'll look at some examples. The examples I'm going to show you are real examples from some of the engagements we or others have been involved with. I think you will find this very unique and different. And then you're all sitting here about privacy. So remember, there's two buzzwords out there. One is privacy. The other one is all the hacking and so on going on. But let's talk about personal privacy as well. What does it mean for you to track people, take picture of them, have video cameras everywhere, and so on? And what does that really mean? And then some takeaways, and hopefully we will have some time for Q&A. All right, so let's start with an ugly picture. So I don't know if you guys realize, but unfortunately in the US alone has been a mass shooting almost every week since beginning of the year, right? So this is pretty scary, right? And it's not only limited to schools, it's happening at churches, it's happening at workplaces, and so on and so forth. It's interesting, I thought Canada was safe, and I don't know if you guys following, in the last 2 weeks there have been mass shootings also in Canada, so I guess this problem is growing. So what you see here is unfortunately some of the big events which just happened in the last 2 or 3 years. You probably have heard about it. The largest shooting happened in Vegas not long ago. There were people attending a congress, a concert, and there was a mad shooter, and he shot a whole bunch of people and injured a whole bunch of people. But the other one, which is actually very interesting to me, living in Silicon Valley, has to do with corporate campuses. I'm not going to talk about university, I'm going to talk about corporate. So how many people know what happened at YouTube not long ago, right? So there was a lady, I think she was originally from San Diego, if I'm not mistaken, and she was, for some reason, they cut their YouTube channel. She could not sell whatever she was selling. I think she was selling some kind of a dance and exercise routine, and for whatever reason, YouTube didn't feel they were the right content for YouTube, so they cut it off, and she lost a lot of money. So this lady got very angry. For the longest time, she was actually tweeting and telling people how angry she was at YouTube. And eventually, she drove all the way to Silicon Valley and went to the campus and actually shot 3 of the employees. Hopefully, they're fine. I don't know what the status is. But if you look at the YouTube press release they did, it was really interesting. They said the shooter was never on the building itself. She never entered any of the buildings, but she was actually outside where employees were having lunch, and that's where the crime happened. So this is, again, a great example of what we call desirable and undesirable. How do I keep my employees safe? And if somebody comes to campus, which I have never seen before, how do I recognize that, right? So we're going to talk about this. Again, this is the beauty of the big data. So other examples, the mass shooting which just happened in one of the, in the UPS facility. We also have the newspaper just was on the paper. And then this was a gym in Florida, actually. Somebody went to the Equinox gym and shot some of the employees there. So that's one. The second thing that corporations really want to know, where are my designated employees? So there are 2 types of employees I'm very much interested to follow. Number one, where are my guards, right? So today, remember, the guards are communicating with the company through their walkie-talkie. Hey, I am by building X, right? So that's really the only way for them to see where these people are. And is this guy really doing his job, or is in the parking lot smoking a cigarette, right? So how do I find out where my guards are? So this is where I want to find my key person. The other one, people who know CPR. If somebody has a heart attack, God forbid, in a location, how do I know where's the closest person who knows CPR, and how can I get him there? Also in the case of fire. So we did a survey. We said, people, if there's a fire on the dorm or your building, what are the things you take out? I think there was mother-in-law, passport, family picture, and your cell phone. And mother-in-law, I think, came the last, and I think everybody wanted to take their cell phone. That's the first thing, if there's a fire, people take with them. So we carry these devices with ourselves all the time. So if you look at it as a society, we generate lots and lots of data. Since I arrived at 7:15 this morning, I've been tweeting about this wonderful event. I told my friends in Silicon Valley how surprised I am. There's so many people standing in a line at 7:15 a.m. and so on. So we create lots of data, right? Not only online, but offline. So question for you guys. At the store, what's the number one data which is generated? Who is the person which has the most amount of data from you when you go shopping? Yes, sir. Not really. It's the credit card company. So Visa or MasterCard or American Express or whatnot, they know every time you shop. Of course, in my case, my wife is the one who's doing all the shopping. I'm sitting in a corner playing with my phone, right? So the store doesn't know anything about me. They know everything about her and her behavior. And the other way they collect data is, of course, through your frequent cards, right? I mean, you go to Safeway or Ralph or whatnot. They want you to put in your information, so they know you like milk and what kind of beer and so on. So we create lots of data. And again, we generate lots of digital cookie crumb. We create lots of data. So somebody asked me, how do I make sure I don't generate data that people track me? And I said, well, start walking nude, throw your phone in the ocean and live in a cave. That's really the only way you're not to be tracked. But we create lots of data. The other thing I want to talk about is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Some of you guys may remember this from your college time. And we just added another line in there called Wi-Fi, right? So Wi-Fi basically is now everywhere. Actually, when you hear really the pitch is we are going from smart home to smart city to smart nation. Very soon, you're going to see entire US to be covered by Wi-Fi, right? And this is much easier to cover it. It's easier than even 4G or 5G, and you're going to have broad coverage everywhere, right? Okay. And by the way, just quickly, who the players are, the top 2 players, you probably know here. I don't know what they have. I think here they may have HP Aruba and Cisco. They are the top 2. And then you see Extreme Networks. Extreme Networks bought Motorola. And then you see a bunch of other guys in there. By the way, there's a company called Huawei. Huawei is a Chinese Wi-Fi company. They are not allowed to sell their equipment in the US. The US government does not do any business with Huawei. The same reason Chinese don't buy Cisco, because again, we collect a lot of data. And then you see a whole bunch of people on the bottom. By the way, this is called Gartner Magic Quadrant. Every year, Gartner puts out who are the leaders and ladders in the market, and you definitely want to be on the right-hand side. That's a good thing for the company there. Okay, so let's talk about stores. So stores have been using this technology of us generating lots of data to be able to look at the buyer behavior. They can see how long you're spending in a location, how many times people go from Starbucks, let's say, to the Nike store. And they use this for two reasons. Number one, for operation, like, hey, based on the traffic, maybe I need to clean the bathroom 3 times a day instead of once a day. The other one is that if you like golf and you're passing by a golf club, by a golf store, I want to be able to sell you, golf clubs and so on, right? So this information is being used, and it's very effective, right? So what they're doing is they're looking at dwell time, they're looking at traffic, they're looking at heat map, and here are some examples of things they can do. So let me give you an engagement we did. So we worked with a luxury woman's store. They're selling these expensive purses. And they put different purses on the window, and they're interested to see how many people come and stop because they see the red bag versus the blue bag, right? And how many of those people actually go to the store, right? This is really interesting. Remember, these people are not logged in, right? There's no camera, just the fact that they have a cell phone in their pocket. The store manager can tell, wow, look, the red bag definitely is the killer app here, right? More people are buying the red bag and the blue, and how many of those are going in. So this is an example of how this is done, right? And then based on that, if you opt in, if you log into the store, we do this when we go to Starbucks, right? So then they know who you are, they can send you coupon and campaign and so on. So very popular way of doing it. The other one, this example is in convention center. This is actually a convention center in Europe. What you're looking at here, these are all the halls, but you notice you can even see the cars, right? Remember, your car has Bluetooth. Also, people have phone. So these people are trying to park, and they can see, there's a traffic jam here, so we better open another gate to let people in. So that's one way of looking at it. On the right-hand side, what you see, again, this is called the density heat map, where people are. So let's say I am here. Let's say this is an auto show. An auto show is interested to see how many people come to my booth, look at the electric car versus a diesel car, and how many of the exact same people are now going to my competitors. This is a huge marketing intelligence. You don't have somebody sitting around taking picture of people, right? They're just looking at the devices, and based on that, they can do this. All right. So getting back on the question, how do we turn off generating all these digital cookie crumbs, is getting harder and harder. So Fitbit, how many people used or know who Fitbit is? Most of you. I don't think you can turn off the Fitbit, right? It's always on, correct? Yeah, that's interesting. We worked with a company, and they were looking at older people at airport. And I said, well, older people, like my father is 92. He does not have any phone. And I said, they don't have phone. How do you track them? They said, well, old people have pacemakers. Pacemaker has a Bluetooth in there, or they have hearing aids, right? Other area which you're generating lots of data and you may not know is your tire of your car, right? How many people notice when you don't have air on the car, it comes out, it's what's it called, the pressure monitor, right? There's no wires from your from your tire going to your car. It's a Bluetooth in there. And every of those devices are unique, so you can even track the cars that's going by. So again, folks, we're generating lots of data here. Now, another thing which is happening, which is very interesting, so you remember these old light bulbs here? By the way, this is an old light bulb. These are all being changed with LED. Why? Because they give you better light. They are much more efficient, energy efficient, and so on. But somebody did something really smart. They're putting Bluetooth and Wi-Fi in the bulbs. So now you can go, and instead of having hotspot, you can just replace these guys with light bulbs, and voila, you get Wi-Fi and you get Bluetooth. But guess what? This is a beautiful grid, right? This can do a very accurate analysis of how many in this room. How should we turn on the air conditioning, right? If there's too many people in this room, I let the fire department know that there's too many people in this room, kick him out, right? So, and how you do this is just by changing light bulbs, no wiring, nothing. So one example is a company in Silicon Valley called Lunera. And there are a bunch of other ones. GE is into this business, Philips and whatnot. But you're going to see more and more what we call smart building, and this is an example of that. All right. So let's talk about the architecture. So like any other big data analysis, the first thing is that you need to find good data. So if you have, as I mentioned, a Wi-Fi enabled device is trying to ping the access point. So when that happens, they capture the data. By the way, it's not only your device ID, which is called MAC ID, time and location. It could also be picture, it could be temperature, whatnot. So you grab all this data and you bring it basically to an analysis that you analyze it, right? So like any other big data analytics package, right? Nothing fancy here. So let's talk about how do we leverage big data for physical security. Before I do that, let's look at how physical security is done today. You see silos of data. So the first one is CCTV, also known as closed capture TVs. These are the TVs that you see everywhere, the monitors. The issue with that, and I will talk about it, is that they're not very smart. The other one is that you have an emergency team. They're waiting for someone to call them that something bad happened in one of the buildings. You have the security guards. These guys are walking around with a walkie-talkie, very lonely job. And then you have IT, and IT is worried about cybersecurity, right? So my view is that, yes, cybersecurity is really important. If somebody goes steal my money from Bank of America, I'm sure FDIC will pay me back. But God forbid if my kids are in a shopping mall and there's a shooting, that's a really bad thing, right? So physical security compares to be a major issue here. All right, so with this technology, you can see a people in a location. All of you have some kind of a wearable or a Bluetooth or a Wi-Fi. Again, based on that, I may know who my guard is, who is my employee. But you know what? There may be a bad actor. Maybe there is somebody that we are interested to see who this person is. So this is where the camera comes in. So people says, hey, cameras are great. They're going to solve all the problems. Let's put security cameras everywhere. How many people remember the Boston bombing, which happened, marathon bombing? Only the older people in the back. So, so this was an event happened, I don't know how many years ago. Actually, they shut down the whole city of Boston over this. And this was the bad guy, the guy with the white hat. And the law enforcement, I don't know if it was FBI or whoever, went and they got all the pictures, put it together. And guess what? They captured those two guys, and they put that on the cover of Boston Globe. That was a major fail. This was a bad day, by the way, to be Middle Eastern and wearing a white hat, right? So that did not work. Okay, so this is a great example of why security cameras don't work well, right? So they don't work well because of the light, because of angle. Search is very difficult. And then also the people counting cameras are not very smart. If you go back and forth in a school 5 times or a store, they count you at 5 different people. They're looking at heads, right? So they're not very good at that. Okay, so, but remember, looking at the digital cookie crumb, which we generate from our mobile devices, our wearables, could be used to do a track of an individual, right? By the way I came here was I used the app. The Big Data LA has an app which says, oh, how do you go from Boulevard Auditorium here? And it worked great. Well, guess what? They're capturing a lot of cookie about me, right? So they know exactly where this individual was, right? We do not know who this individual is because he never logged in, but we know his track and we know he was there at a certain time. Why is this important? For 2 reasons. Number one, he's a witness, right? If something bad happened, I can grab this guy and says, hey, did you see what happened here? But the second one is what I call smart alert. If he ends up in a location which he's not supposed to be, I can raise a flag. So let me give you another example. In factories, there is a term called man down. So somebody was in the factory, or it could be a refinery or whatnot, and all of a sudden you don't hear from Joe. Joe is missing, right? So what happened to Joe? Maybe he got injured, maybe he passed out, maybe he was hit by a robot working in a factory, right? So where is Joe, right? And being able to track where Joe was and where was the last time we saw him is very important here. Okay, so I talk about the cameras. I talk about basically the wireless data that we create. Let's merge this together. So this example is a robbery. You guys see here in the middle? You see 3 bad guys going to a store. What are they wearing? They're wearing masks, right? What's my camera going to do for me? Zippo, right? These guys all look like each other, right? But guess what? The same guy was at the store, or the bank in this case, 2 weeks ago, right? He has the same phone in his pocket, and he was there, checking out to see how many cameras and so on, right? So basically, you can go back in your database, say, do we have a picture of anybody with the same device in there? So lesson learned, to rob a bank, please give your phone to your loved one or somebody else. Phone on them, yes. Yeah. You'll be surprised how many people do that. Or their Fitbit, or their pacemaker, or their hearing aids because they were talking to their buddies. Anything which generates data. Furthermore, the police can go ahead and now build a story. Where else did they go, and how did they eventually left, and whatnot, right? So this could be used for 2 reasons. One, again, forensic. I can go back in time, but also smart alert. If I see this individual again, I can raise a flag in there. Okay, so we come back to the questions. Let me go through the pitch, and then we will come back to questions. So let me talk about, again, campuses. This is the YouTube campus we talked about. Remember, again, Silicon Valley and all the campuses were built after university, like here. I was able to come in and walk into any building. There was no guards ask me for my badge and so on. By the way, that's not true. I have traveled to China and Mexico, and man, they have a guard right by the door. They don't let anybody in any buildings, right? But so Silicon Valley is now rethinking, is like, wow, we may not want to have this open environment of anybody can come and go in corporation, right? So how are they doing this? They want to use the existing infrastructure. Designated employees log in. So who are the designated employee? Again, could be my fire marshal. It could be the guy who knows CPR. It could be my guards, and so on. So this could be also used for search and rescue. So if there's a fire in a building, I wanted to see how many devices do I see. And again, the first responders, the fire department is very much interested to do that even before get there. Wow, there's a guy on the 3rd floor. We better go find them. And then the other one, and this comes into the cybersecurity. There's a lot of hacking coming during the weekend. People come to the corporations on the weekend, and they try to hack to the Wi-Fi of the company, right? So again, who are all the rogue Wi-Fi systems that I see out there? All right, so I talk about merging this data, what we call image to device association. So take the picture and merge that with the signatures from mobile devices. The other one, we again talk about crowd safety. So this is interesting. So we did a project at a stadium. And stadiums, a lot of fights happen. Now it's getting a little bit better because I think they stopped serving liquor, at least at the university games. But what they're looking at, if there was a whole bunch of people just all go together in one location, something different happened. Why is this people just sitting down, right? Usually when there's a fight or whatnot, everybody jumps out and look at what's going on. So you have basically a big heat map of where people are, and that's when police gets interested to go look at. All right. So benefits are enhancing the existing system. Again, all the systems are there. You're just grabbing data and making it smarter. It's passive. It helps you with your operation, scalable, deliver peace of mind. And then again, the idea is to use the existing hardware. Remember, I do not want to install beacons anywhere. I just want to use the existing Wi-Fi and camera, which is in the place, without actually bringing more hardware in there. So 2 recent news I saw, which was very interesting. You probably have seen this on the news. The first one is this student, which I hope they find her. They have not been able, at least as of last week. She was a student at University of Iowa. How many people saw this on the news? So this is all over the news. And this lady went for a jog, and she's missing, right? So I think she's been gone now for, do you know if they find her chance, or she's still missing, unfortunately? This is really sad. There was good news, and I think the police put this in there. She was wearing a Fitbit. For a jog, she was actually wearing a Fitbit, so hopefully they can see, at least where was the last time they saw her with that device. Same thing as Find My Phone, right? I mean, for those of you who have Apple iPhone, I do. I always miss it, and I always look to see where I left it, so same concept there. The other one, this one here, was a Chinese student. She came to the US. This was actually the Reagan Airport. This was on the news about 2 weeks ago, and they did a whole Amber Alert and so on. And when she got off the plane, without telling anybody, she went outside, and then these 2 people come, and the news says they grabbed her, and they took her to this car, and they went away, right? And this was all over the news. Everybody was really worried and so on. End up to be her parents. I don't know exactly the story, but this was all over the news, and it was like nationwide Amber Alert is that this lady is missing. So here's an example. If she had a phone with her, depending on where she went, they would be able to track her. All right, so let me talk quickly about privacy. So how many people to the city of London in England? So you have been on the camera 300 times a day while you were visiting London. So this is London. They have 500,000 cameras in the city of London. They're spending $300 million, and they're taking lots and lots of pictures. Do you think they asked me if it's okay for them to take my picture? No. So you see this already with places they put signs in there. I don't know if USC has those signs, but hey, smile, you're on camera. Also in London, the subways, even they're saying we are tracking your Wi-Fi devices. So the people are start putting signs in there. But there is really a lot of data being collected on us, right? The other one that people ask us is that, well, why doesn't police don't have police all this data? They already know our cell phone, and the movie we see that they're finding people and so on. So until June of this year, every state had their own rule when it came to tracking cell signal. Like, for example, I was really interested on that one. All these red ones, like Texas and Nevada and so on, the police didn't even need to get a permission from the judge to track you, right? But actually, June 22nd, it changed. The Supreme Court of US passed a law that you cannot just track people because you think they're a bad guy. You need to have a real reason and go to the judge and do this. So privacy laws are getting better. How many people have heard about GDPR? Most of you did. So GDPR is a European regulation which passed a couple of months back, and actually that's the reason we're all getting now these messages from Google and Facebook and everybody else to change or read the documents, right? And this is pretty major penalty, and so we have people say, okay, well, we stop doing business in Europe. Well, that doesn't work. If you're tracking European citizen in the US, Europe can also come back and basically sue you. I think it's 4% of your annual penalty per year, so very expensive. Okay, you guys may want to write this down. There's a lady named Michelle Denedy. She's a chief privacy officer at Cisco, and she's a lawyer, and she has written an excellent book, and she wrote it with her father, which was, I believe, an engineer, and it talks about privacy is not an afterthought. You have to build it in your code as you are building a product like this, right? So again, Michelle has done a great job. What can you do with this data, where you store it, and so on? And she did this way before even GDPR becomes public. All right. So to summarize, number one, as a society, we live a lot of digital cookie crumb, right? So how do you use this information for helping the desirables, right? Again, the people who need technology and so on. And then the second one is that how do I detect people who are undesirable and don't let them in my location or catch them? So with that, thank you so much, and we'll leave it open for questions. Gentleman in the front, you had a question, or you had a question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So there's these cases where you join streams.
Yes.
But those streams are potentially owned by different people. So even if you're allowed to, in theory, they have maybe the ability to query those, but how can you get those without a subpoena?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
do it as a course of normal operation versus reaction to disasters that already happened.
So very good question. Sure. So basically, actually, in our case, most of our customers are building owners, right? So when I come within the USC campus owns my data here. Why? Because I'm logged into their Wi-Fi, I am in their environment, and so on and so forth. You are correct. You cannot just go grab data from, now government may be able to do that with subpoena, right? They may say, oh, there is enough reason for me to go grab data from different places to look at it. I'm sure they're doing that in some cases. But the example that I showed you was happening in the bank, right? So bank owns, of course, all the cameras. They own all the Wi-Fi data in that, so they could do the deep analysis on that one.
Basically, the good news was this guy with the phone was in that same bank. If he went to another branch, maybe.
That's correct.
They have it, but if he went across the street to Starbucks, they would have it.
It would not have. That's very clear. So basically, in the case of the bank robbery, what happens, the bad guys usually go there a week or so, check out to see where's the security guard, is he sleeping or is it up? How many cameras do they have, when he's busy, and so on, right? By the way, let me give you another example. So there was a group of Russian hackers went to Taiwan. This was roughly about a year and a half ago. And without touching ATM machines, they went to 7 ATM machines and they were able to get money out of ATM machines. By the way, that's wonderful business, right? I want to get into that business. And what was interesting was that, first of all, the bank didn't recognize this. And then what happened was that finally a retired police saw him at a coffee shop and so on. And being a big Russian hacker, being in China, in Taiwan, was not hard to detect him, but they caught him. But this was interesting, right? So if the same guy goes to 5 or 6 different ATM machines, you may go to 2 ATM machines because the first one doesn't work, you go to the second one. But in an hour, you go to 5 or 6 different ATM machines, there's definitely a red flag here, right? So this was a case where if they were looking at those signals, they could say, why are these guys going to so many ATM machines? By the way, they were all from the First Bank of Taiwan or whatever. They all was the same bank, and they were able to hack and get a lot of money there. Yes, sir? No problem.
My question is, you said you use ready-made devices to collect data?
Correct.
So I'm assuming you have Wi-Fi, you're using the...
Or Bluetooth. No, you cannot do cell signal. As I mentioned, cell signal, only police can, and I'm talking about US, right? Because, China and other, I'm sorry? You cannot use cell signals, no. So but basically what happens if you have a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth device, what it does, it basically pings the access point in the location. Yeah.
My question is,
Okay.
in case of the bank, so the bank was keeping track of all the Wi-Fi devices?
In the bank, correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Otherwise, they won't be able to...
They won't be able to do it because the guy was wearing a mask, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir, in the back.
So is there any law against in a private property collect a picture of the faces of people?
Faces, you have to actually put a sign up. And if you look at, as I mentioned on my, if I look at this slide here, a lot of places put a sign. But for example, when you came to USC, did you see a sign which says we are capturing your video? And there's a camera out there. But it's interesting. I asked about what this camera is for, and they said, well, A, they're protecting that nobody steals any of this equipment. The second one, if there is an issue, they can send someone. But there is, most, and again, going back to the London example, they're capturing a lot of data there. Actually, the main reason they keep it for such a short term is because the video data, somebody else in the keynote talk about this, is so much data. But let me give you an example. Dubai Airport just passed a law that they're going to save data for 6 months. That is a lot of data. Imagine the amount of people who are going through that airport, because that's a hub, right? So issue is not mostly privacy issue, mostly is that that's a lot of data. And that's the data you do not want to keep sending to the cloud, right? I mean, give you an example. I have Amazon Home Security at home, and the maximum it gives me is 1 day, right? And by the way, it's event-driven, right? It's not capturing everything, right? Only when somebody enters my house, that's when it captures there. So, but the second part that you did not ask is the Wi-Fi signal, right? Is it legal to capture the Wi-Fi signal? Remember, your Wi-Fi signal, all there is just a 16-digit MAC ID. It's a unique ID. We have no idea who this device belongs to, right? That's where the camera comes in, right? Then you can merge that data together. What does a camera has? Picture, time, and location. What does a phone has is your device ID, time, and location. So you basically marry those 2 pictures together, and that's how you track the same individual there. Now, there's a bunch of questions which comes up. One is, we as a society change phones now every 12 months. So what happens if they change the phone? What happens if the person has multiple devices, right? So in my case, I have an iPad, I have an iWatch, I have an iDog, I have everything, right? So how do you put all this together? And one example of that, again, is pattern recognition. Also is based on proximity. You can see that this person is moving with these 2 devices at all times, right? So you can say, they belong to each other. or they may log in with the same device. Again, when I came to the USC, I logged in with my email address as well as my my iPhone, so they know that, okay, these all belong to the same person in here. Yes, sir. Correct. Correct. Yep, yep. This is the one which just Supreme Court passed. Yeah. This one, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But presumably you could passively collect data on cell phones that go through an area in the same way as Wi-Fi. I'm not sure if
Stingray. You guys remember Stingray? So they had these devices that you could listen to people. You go jail doing that. I don't recommend anybody do that. That's not a good thing. That is definitely. And let me tell you what the difference is. When I am at USC, you know, the USC can see what I'm doing here because this is a private location, right? But my cell phone goes with me everywhere I go, right? Do you see the difference, right? So this is a private location. That one, I mean, why does even my boss wants to know where I'm going for lunch, right? Or, you know, whatnot, right? So again, it's a private versus a public place. There. One other question, I think. Yes. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Very important question. Yes, if you have your Wi-Fi on, you are still pinging. Okay, now Apple did something interesting. In 2014 with iOS 8, they are randomizing the Mac IDs which generates. There's smart companies which have found a way around that. I won't tell you who the smart company is, but this is my email, nader@kiana.io. That's my Twitter, and would love to talk to you guys afterward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate
Oh,
your
thank you.
this knowledge.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you setting this up. Let me get out of your way for the next speaker. Hello.